Dupe for some reason just enjoyed lying. Ladies and gentlemen, gays and whores, or whatever you identify as. And she just started smiling, and that just gave me joy. Like, oh,
I'm Keon. This is my cafe. I opened with a couple of friends. It's called Pickled. We're in Lavington. I've been here for about 7 years and was just trying to create a space that's a little different than what we have in Nairobi. A little more of like a green, scenic, kind of like being at home, but being at a cafe. Nice, eclectic living room furniture, good Wi-Fi, lots of outlets, a nice place you can like work from the day. We've got a bar, so after work drinks, cocktails, beer and wine, plenty of events. We do pub quizzes, we have live music every week or so, and then just sort of like art classes. We've got a pottery studio behind us. We do classes here. We have a painting event later today, so we're pretty open to kind of just like eclectic, artsy, creative creators coming in and using the space. And then also just a nice place to work, have some coffee, have a drink, have a good sandwich. That was another piece of like opening this, was we just felt like there weren't really any good like sandwich shops in Nairobi, and we're like, we can make a good sandwich, so let's just try. And here we are. We've been open for like 8 months or so. It's a lot of fun, and good place to come check out, work, hang out, meet a friend, read a book, kind of open to anything.
ladies and gentlemen, gays and whores, or whatever it is you identify as, welcome to the first ever episode of Coffee Conversations with Preston. What is Coffee Conversations with Preston? I don't like to call it a podcast, but I would say it's this thing that I do where I go to different coffee shops for each episode, and I read along stories that I wrote, personal stories that I wrote about myself and my life from childhood till now. I just read along with you guys and we talk about it. I explain certain things and we have a conversation. That's basically the theme behind Coffee Conversations with Preston. Also, we are doing that with a cup of coffee. This is a latte, by the way. If you know me, you know I love my latte. I don't play with my lattes. So this is a latte, a single. After the conversations and the read-alongs, there are going to be a segment where I will take questions from people, either from people on the internet or people around the coffee shop that I find myself in. But on this episode, we're not going to have that because this is a surprise drop. I haven't put it out there yet, so I don't have any questions from anyone. I would see if I can ask maybe someone here, just approach them and see if they, would want to tell me stuff or ask me a question for me to give them advice. If not, it's just going to be just conversations for today, for this episode. All right. This was supposed to be done on a larger scale, right? I reached out to a podcast company. We had a meeting and I didn't hear back from them till this day. Then I switched the direction to something else. But I still needed like a videographer and someone who could help me edit videos. Spoke to someone till now, nothing yet from them. So I thought to myself, you know what? Just do it any way you can and put it out there. I know myself, I can be very lazy, and if I keep waiting on this guys, I will stall this thing and just never do it. So I'm just like, get on with it and just do it. So that's where we are, and we are here at our first location for our first episode, and Pickled Cafe and Bar. I love coming to Pickled, right? And it just feels right. It just feels great that I'm having the first episode here. I love it so much here. So let's get right into it. So I wrote a book of short stories. So I have 20 short stories, and this book is titled Life Unfortunately. They are my real life stories. The first story in this book, which is so crazy, that my grandma passed 2 weeks ago, and the story about my grandma is the first story here. It's crazy, but without wasting time, let's get right into it. I'm also trying to finish this like as quickly as possible before this place gets crowded and becomes really noisy. So, Grandma, my first love, is the first story here. My earliest memory of childhood was with my grandmother. She lived in Saple, Delta State at the time, and she was a fish trader. We lived in a busy commercial area full of noise and life. I attended a nice enough primary school, and during holidays, weekends, or days when I didn't go to school, I followed her to the fish market. Those were pleasant days filled with smells of fresh fish, loud noises of traders and buyers bargaining, both honks, and the comfort of knowing I belonged somewhere. I have no memory of existence before life with my grandmother. Like when I think back to the moments or the times where I knew I exist or I had consciousness, it was with my grandmother. I don't have any memory before that, and we lived in Saple in this very, very bubbly, busy commercial space. So think of a soccer field and think of houses in the middle of that soccer field. That was how it felt. There were just like so many houses together just in that in that like space, and we were all united, old people, young people, children, everyone. We're all united. Like nobody went through anything alone. We're all like a family, and we knew everybody knew everybody's secrets, and if something happened, everybody would rally around themselves to figure it out. It was really fun, to be honest. And then weekends or days where I didn't go to school, I would follow my grandma to the fish market. So the fish market basically was built on top of the river. The market itself was built on the river, and the traders basically were just inside one space, but they all had their little corners where they sold their thing. And then from that market, you just walk outside and get a boat to wherever you want to go to go get fish, and or send fish to a nearby town or get fish from a nearby town. Yeah. The house we lived in was a fun house, always full with cousins and relatives coming in and out. It felt like a small world of its own, but even in that beautiful rowdiness, there were small cracks. So that house was really cool. Like I loved the house. It was me, my grandma, one of my uncles, distant relatives, and sometimes my cousins would visit from Warri. They would come spend days or hours with us and go back, right? So that house was never empty. It was always full. People were always coming in and out every time. I remember when we used to watch, like I think at 9 or 8 or 9 p.m. we would all gather and watch I Need to Know, those old TVs that God, I'm having this is a very, very nostalgic moment. We'd all just sit down and watch stuff. But even in that beautiful rowdiness, there were small cracks. One cousin always lied on me. An uncle lived with us too, and he was strict in a way that frightened me. So this wasn't even a cousin, it was a distant relative. My grandma was very close to this lady from the fish market. Apparently, they were from the same hometown, right? So her kids used to live with one of her kids used to live with us in Saple, Dupe. Dupe, for some reason, just enjoyed lying. Lying was like reflex. She just lied, and she enjoyed seeing me in pain or being maltreated or being screamed at. So she lied at any given chance she had. Like once my grandma returned from the market, the first thing Dupe would just lie, "Oh, I ate this that I wasn't supposed to eat. I did this. I peed." For no reason, and I would just be stunned, like, what is this girl doing? It always freaked me out, but I just didn't. I would always used to fight because, like, what? Tupe lied too much, right? And then an uncle lived with us too, and he was strict in a way that frightened me. When I couldn't recite the beans porridge poem correctly or did anything mischievous, he would beat me. Sometimes he tied me to a window and flogged me. This Uncle Jolomi is dead now. He died like years ago, many years ago, from sickle cell. That guy used to. So I don't know if most of you guys remember this poem. the beans porridge poem. For those of you who grew up in Warrior in Nigeria, the beans porridge poem: beans porridge hot, beans porridge cold, beans porridge in the pot 3 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot 3 days old. Basically, anytime I go back from school, once I get to that door and step foot in the house, that was the first thing, recite the beans porridge poem. And I never got it right. I could never. It's funny how now I just recited it from start to finish. Then I would start and I would not be able to finish, and it always followed up with beatings. This man would beat me up, sometimes tie me to a window and flog the shit out of me for no reason. So like sometimes he tied me to a window and flogged me. I remember the fear whenever I returned from school, because I knew I would be welcomed with a prompt to recite the poem, followed by beatings because I never got it right. As I said, never got it right, always beat me. I remember the pain and the helplessness. My grandmother always fought against this. She would argue with him, defend me, and pull me away. She was my shield in those moments. So my grandmother sometimes would walk in on him beating me, and she would fight this guy like, what are you doing this? She would always, or sometimes when she got back from the market, I'll go report to her what had happened, and she would come and attack this guy, attack him, insult him, sometimes even tell him to leave the house. But those confrontations didn't change this guy, because he kept on doing the same thing until I left the house. This man didn't stop. But thank God for my grandmother, who, that uncle is dead now. He died many years ago. He had sickle cell, as I said earlier. I don't feel anger when I think of my experiences with him, because it's an almost fading memory now. To be honest, I don't. The guy is dead, so what's even there to be angry about? Did that experience or those experiences shape me in ways? Of course they did. It sort of like prepared me for future violence or abuses from my mother, because that would go on to happen later. So yeah, now I'm not mad about it. I don't really think about it. I'm saying it now because it's a story to share. So yeah, life with my grandmother was beautiful. It was simple and very rooted. But many years after, she reunited with my grandfather to live and take care of him in Warri, because he was aging and falling sick. And I had grown into a teenager. Something shifted. Slowly and quietly, things became sour. She started to resent me and treat me badly. She would abuse me in front of my cousins when they visited, and other children in the compound as well. I didn't fully understand it then. Maybe I noticed it a little, maybe I pushed it aside, maybe I know now it's settled somewhere deep inside me. It followed me into adulthood in ways I didn't recognize until much later. At some point, my mom took me away from my grandmother, and I started living with my mom in Warri. But years after I'd become a teenager, I went back to live with my grandmother. But this time, she had moved to Warri to live with my grandfather. So I moved back to live with my grandmother, because I genuinely love my grandmother. I enjoyed living with her. She was my first love. So I loved her so much. But going back this time was a different experience. My grandmother had grown distant from me. The love wasn't there anymore. Everything I did made her angry. She always judged me, I don't know, it just became really strange. I noticed it, but I was a child, I was a kid. I didn't really care. I was just like, yeah, whatever. I felt the embarrassment sometimes, I felt the shame, but I could really care less. I was a child, so it would happen, I'll feel bad and I'll move on, right? But as much as I shrugged those things off back then, they stayed with me till now. Like, those things followed me, and it really hit me, and it became very evident that those things followed me when I saw her last year. We'll get into that. So yeah, they followed me, and there's some things that I would do now, or I would do when I was growing up, and when I sit back to think about it, I will be like, yeah, I know where this is coming from. This is coming from experiences with my grandmother, or you know, stuff like that, like things that I went through growing up. And yeah, one of those things. I still don't know what changed. Maybe I became the grandchild whose parents still struggled financially, while the children who birthed our other grandchildren were rich and thriving. Maybe I became harder to love. Maybe it was when I began doing bad things like stealing from her. My grandmother has 7 kids, right? With my mom being the first child. I don't know about now because I haven't seen them in years, but back then they were all doing well except my mother, who still struggled financially. So I'm like, okay, is it because of that? Is it because the other kids had money and they were giving her money and taking care of her and doing stuff? While my mom tried, but she wasn't doing as much as your other one. So I'm like, is it because of that? Could it be that the hate for my mom, she was transferring that to me? I couldn't place it. I didn't really understand. Or is it when I started doing bad things? So I'm not completely innocent. I was kind of a very mischievous teenager, right? I My grandmother had a shop, right? So sometimes I would steal stuff, I would steal money, I would steal petty items. It wasn't like I was a notorious thief or a kleptomaniac who was just always picking stuff and stealing. It was just a very mischievous, rebellious teenage behavior that I learned it from people living with us, right? So let me read that. So, see, maybe it was maybe it was when I began doing bad things like stealing from her, something I learned from the relatives she allowed to live with us. So remember when I said my grandmother was close to this lady from the fish market, that were from the same hometown, and one of her kids lived with us back then in Saple. So this time 2 of her kids moved to Warri and they were living with us still. So now the lady had 3 of her kids living with my grandmother. Sometimes when my grandmother goes to the market to buy stuff, or when she's tired and she wants to rest, those kids would assist her in the shop, to like sell stuff. And that, I used to notice, like, they would always shower with very fancy soaps, and they just always had money. They were always buying stuff. And I kept on wondering how they had that money, because these were like kids who were still we're in secondary school, like the early stages of secondary school, from GSS 1, 2, 3. So I was like, where are they getting money from? Until one of them opened up to me and she told me, like, hey, this is what they do. And I now got influenced and I started doing the same thing too. So I started stealing from my grandma. So it wasn't like, it was just one of those mischievous things. Although I got vindicated later, because we'll get into that, right? So yeah, so I was like, is it because of that? Is that why she? But before I even started doing these things, this whole stealing thing, I already felt the distance, right? But this is me just saying, maybe I became harder to love because I started doing those things. So the hate just got compounded, and yeah, I don't know. But I felt like this is someone I grew up with. This is someone who nurtured me from when I was a child, I was a baby, and I felt like I could have been given grace. And teenagers would do stupid stuff, so I felt like she could have understood to an extent and just giving me grace, but she didn't give me grace. She Let me start from here. So something I learned from the relatives she allowed live with us. She always believed them over me and trusted them more. I slowly became her least favorite grandchild. That realization didn't come all at once. It crept in quietly. So, what's even worse? What was worse is the fact that whenever something happened, even if you tell my grandma that I didn't do this thing, and my relatives were the ones who did whatever she was mad about, she would still insist that I did them. She would never believe. That thing always baffled me. Because she would never believe. She would say it's me. Or I taught them how to do those mischievous things. Crazy. Crazy. So from there, I just knew that, yeah, I wasn't, this woman didn't love me anymore. I just knew it was gone. But I loved my grandmother, and I still kept on living with her because because back then I would just rather live with my grandparents and live with my mother. So with all those experiences, I just quietly knew that love was gone. Right? It became so bad and obvious when she started bad mouthing me to her children and sometimes would stop or discourage them from giving me favors. At some point, I grew up with my mom's sister and her family. Um, but before I moved in with them, I used to always go to their house for like vacations, and like during holidays, I would go spend it in their house because I loved my cousins. Like I loved them so much. I loved being around them. So I'd always go to their house to spend time with them. Before I moved in with them, my mom's sister would always come visit my grandma, and sometimes I would overhear my grandma telling my auntie like, "Oh, he steals, he lies too much. Don't let him come to your house. He would influence your children." All those things, right? Yeah. One day I just knew I wasn't the same child she once defended. It became obvious there was nothing there anymore. I knew this woman didn't care for me anymore. I knew now she had other grandkids that she liked more. And life just kept on going. I couldn't do anything. What was I supposed to do? So, as I grew older, I drifted away. Life happened. I went into the world and tried to figure myself out. Years passed, many, many years without seeing her. Then a year ago, I visited my hometown. I went to see her. She was so old and frail, living in a dark room. It felt like she was just waiting to die. That sight of her broke something in me. This woman who once filled the fish market with her voice and presence was now quiet, small, and almost fading. Last year, I had a very traumatic experience. Like, I lost myself, and at some point, I just said I needed to go home and fix a lot of things, fix childhood traumas, fix relationship with my extended family that I hadn't seen in years. Right. Yeah. So I went back home to worry, and during that time, I went to see my grandmother. I just felt like I should see her because I hadn't seen her in maybe 12 or 13 years. Um, and then I got to the house, and immediately I stepped into her room. I froze. This woman who was once like very bubbly and full of life just was just there, skinny, thin, frail. Like she couldn't even speak properly. She couldn't even see. She was in a dark room. I just imagined how lonely she felt. She just looked like she was done, like she was just waiting to just go. She couldn't see me, right? But my grandmother is Shakiri, but she speaks Robo fluently. So she was communicating with her maid with that dialect, and the maid told her who was there and called my name. And immediately she heard my name, her face just brightened. She just started smiling, and that just gave me joy. Like, oh, this woman still. My mom has been like, when I speak to my mom, she would tell me, "Oh, your grandma has been looking after you," but seeing her react that way in person just like, oh, this woman, okay, you love me, okay. So yeah, she smiled, and she couldn't speak because I don't understand. She was mostly speaking in Urobo, which was very weird because I'm like, "Ma'am, you're Shakiri, speak Shakiri." Maybe that I would try to understand. So we didn't really speak, but then something just, I don't know, for some reason just pushed me, and I held her hands. I held her hand. So let me read. So she didn't recognize me at first. She remembered me faintly until I told her my name. Then her face softened. She was so happy to hear my voice because she couldn't see anymore. I held her hands and rubbed them gently. They felt so thin and fragile. In that moment, everything flashed before my eyes. The market days, the laughter, the fear, the resentment, the distance, it all lived in that single touch. It felt like that was going to be the last time I would see her alive. As I said, something just pushed me, and I held her hands and I rubbed them gently, and all the experiences I had with her from childhood to that moment flashed before my eyes. It was like a 360 thing. And whew, I just, Yeah, I just broke, and not like broke down in a sad way, in a joyful way, because I'm like, yes, we didn't speak, but our spirit spoke to ourselves. It felt like, you know what, I'm happy to see you, I'm happy to see you, I forgive you, I forgive you. It was just very beautiful, right? It felt like that was going to be the last time I would see her alive. So it's not rocket science. Like, you are seeing this person who, like, she's clearly tired. You can see her and you can tell that this woman is clearly tired of life. She just there in a dark room, no friends. Her kids are not there. Her siblings are not there. Her husband is gone. Everyone is so. She was just there like, let this thing come, let me go. You could see it. I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I held her hands. I'm glad I stayed long enough to feel everything. I felt the love, the confusion, the hurt, and the forgiveness. I left that room feeling lighter. I'm at peace now, and I've forgiven her. As I said, it, holding her hands, just, I just let go of everything, and I embrace love. I let go of the hurt. I let go of, and I just embrace love. I didn't think about all the nasty things she said about me when I was younger, or I didn't think about none of that. All I just, in that moment, was just like, I love this woman. You know, I love this woman. No matter what, I love this woman. And in my head, I'm like, because usually I don't even go to worry. I never go to, I hate going to worry. So I knew that if I, like, when I leave, I probably will not be back in worry in like another maybe 4 to 5 years. And in my head, I'm like, the only thing that would even bring me to worry is maybe if this woman dies and I have to go for a funeral. But I didn't think it would happen so soon. I thought it would be in another 5 years. Right, so I left the house just being happy with myself and smiling and knowing that if that's the last time I see her, we ended, not like ended things, but like we parted in on good terms. Like, you know, she forgave me, I forgave her, and we found love again. And yeah, it was really, really beautiful. It was really a beautiful moment. And exactly 1 year after this woman passed, I saw her in April last year, and she passed like 2 weeks ago, May this year. Yeah, and when I heard, I was like, I wasn't even sad. This woman lived. She was 90. So I'm like, she lived, and I'm glad I saw her before she passed. And I held her hands and we made peace. Right. So yeah, guys, that's the end of this story. I'm not mad about my experiences with my grandma, to be honest. I'm not mad about it. I'm glad I had that kind of experience with my grandma, because it shaped me in ways I didn't expect, and it shaped me into being this man that I am today, and how to navigate emotions and people. Um, there's some things that like I go through now, and then when I trace it back, I'm like, yeah, it's because of all these things that you went through with your grandmother as a child. That's why you're the way you are. And I'm also not using those experiences to become a very mean or difficult person. I'm using them as a tool to also fix issues about myself, to become a better person, right? So I don't let those things define me in a negative way. So I don't think any experience is a waste. Every experience that we go through, they are there to like teach us something, like a lesson to learn to move forward in life. So it's just what it is. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. And that's it, guys. This has been fun, to be honest. It's so sad that we're not going to do the game or the question segment today. As I said, I did not put it out there. I'm eager to see how you guys respond to this episode, and maybe that will ginger me to want to do a second episode. So maybe in the next one, there will be questions to answer and issues to solve, or problems to solve. Thank you guys for sitting, or wherever you you are at the time when you're watching this. Thank you guys for staying with me, and I appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the next episode, hopefully. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Have a great day.